Hi, I'm Deborah Holtship, editor of Michigan Today. In this episode of Listen in Michigan, my guest is sports documentarian and storyteller Jon Fish, a class of 95 history major and longtime ESPN producer who has brought us many an entertaining college game day program and other compelling packages about our favorite athletes. Jon's latest passion project comes out just in time for Stanley Cup season as he profiles one of Michigan's most beloved sports legends, hockey's Mike Legg. For the uninitiated, Legg earned his spot in U of M lore back in 1996 on TV when he pulled a wild, never-before-seen move that set the Wolverines on course to win Red Berenson's first national championship in 32 years. Legg's dazzling game changer, dubbed the Michigan, involves scooping the puck onto the stick and using centrifugal force to tuck it under the net's crossbar to score a goal. It's a fast, swirling move that you have to see to believe. I know that's not ideal in an audio format, but Jon's enthusiasm for the move and its ultimate impact is worth the listen, I promise. Now, what's weird about the Michigan is that it burned really bright at first and then all but disappeared from the game. And now the move is back with renewed vengeance, transforming the sport itself. Thanks to Legg, hockey is no longer played solely on the ice. Think about that for a second. Now, Fish, an avid hockey fan and Mike Legg fan, they were on campus at the same time, sensed there was a story in the move's disappearance and subsequent return, and he was right, of course. He found Legg in Vancouver, where he's been a firefighter for about 18 years. Though long since retired from his 7 years in the pros and the Finnish elite division, Legg is a beloved youth coach who's delighted to teach the Michigan to anybody with a stick and a pair of blades. Okay, let's get to Fish, a storyteller who favors the sports story behind the story, especially when it's about a fellow alum he used to watch at Yost. His 30-minute piece on the Michigan will be all over ESPN throughout the playoffs. So here's Jon to answer my first burning question. Why is the play called the Michigan and not the Legg?
I asked the same question, what do you call it? I asked Mike Legg, what do you call it? I think the best I can see is the fact that everybody knew some guy from Michigan pulled it. When Mike pulled this move, this was in a really, really big stage game. This was, you're losing to Minnesota at Michigan State, and you have a team that can win a national title, and yet you're getting outshot and you're getting outplayed. So when he pulls it and Michigan then responds, and then goes on to win that game and then win the semifinal and then win the title, it's almost just become like the Michigan versus remembering, the Legger, or as Bill Armstrong called it, the high rap or the do it. People had different names for it, but I think just because like the bright yellow jersey, it says Michigan, it's just become the Michigan. It's now officially branded to the state, the school, the name, and so everybody calls it the Michigan. And I think a lot of it comes down to ultimately is this was a national TV game. This was a huge stage, and that's kind of why it got the name.
Nothing called, and Michigan still scrambling. It's a goal. Michigan finally somehow got it in the net to tie the game.
I don't believe I saw what I think I just saw. But that puck, the shot came from behind the net.
It looked like it, yes.
And it may have been flipped over the net and off the back of DeBus. I'm going to have to look at that again. But it was a surprise to everybody. And it's a
just
tie
so
hockey game.
Fun to watch.
It's mesmerizing.
Yeah. So how would you physically describe the move itself?
When Mike and Bill first did it, they would bend down and use kind of leverage to put the blade of the stick to get the puck up on its edge and then scoop it up. And then you're using basically centrifugal force to keep the puck against the blade of the stick and around and underneath the crossbar. Because the rule is you cannot go over the crossbar. If you go over the crossbar, it's what they call high sticking in hockey. But if you keep it under the crossbar, then you can do it. So you tuck it in. That's how it was done. Now the guys have gotten so good at it. And the sticks are so flexible now. I mean, back when Mike was doing it, those sticks were like wooden pieces of lumber. I mean, maybe a little bit of flex, but they weren't I played with them. I mean, I have them in my basement. My son laughs at them. People make chairs out of old hockey sticks, but now they're like carbon flex, synthetic, composite, bendable things that it's unibody shape, poured, molded, so that now the sticks can do anything. And a lot of the NHL guys have gotten so good at it that they literally can do it on the fly, scoop it up with their blade and do it. So it's kind of advanced, and you've seen advancements from there. You've seen guys scoop it up and pass it over to the puck to a teammate who bats it in. Trevor Zegras pulled it off. It's really changing the sport of hockey itself.
Watch Lafleur. He will take him down.
That's Hilton goes down, but what happens to that puck?
The very cool thing about this particular move is it's not just a college hockey move or a pro hockey move. It's hockey in general. It happened in 96, and then it disappears. And I really couldn't figure out why. I mean, you'd see it in isolated places in far reaches of the hockey world. You'd see it in the Quebec Major Juniors. You'd see it maybe in Europe. You'd see grainy footage like Bigfoot, of this thing. But it wasn't something that you saw. It's like releasing a song 25 years ago. And people think it's awesome at the time, but then it kind of goes away. But then like 2.5 decades later, all of a sudden the song's a hit again. It would blow your mind.
Yeah.
So it's almost, it's a hard thing to wrap your head around. It was a confluence of circumstances where Andrei Svechnikov, who plays for the Carolina Hurricanes, when he's 11 years old, he's sitting in Siberia, or like an area near Siberia, as he describes it, watching Finland versus Russia. And a man from Finland who played for the Finnish national team, Marcus Granold, pulls this move in 2011. And at the time, Svechnikov is roughly 11 years old. So he then teaches himself how to do it. Well, flash forward to 2019, and he pulls it off in the NHL. And once he did that, it was like October of 2019, EA Sports sees it, goes, oh my God, we got to put this in the video game. And then what happens? COVID happens and the world shuts down. So now you have all these athletes with this time on their hands. Hockey guys, they can't get into the rink. What are they doing? They're messing around with the puck. Oh, I saw this cool move by Svechnikov. Oh, wait, there's this move in the EA Sports game. Oh, wait, EA Sports puts Mike Legg in the game. Hey, wait a second. There's this YouTube, Instagram influencer named Zach Bell up in Canada, and he's messing around at the side of the road, flipping the puck around. I want to be like Zach Bell. How does Zach Bell do that? Let's pick the puck up. So all of a sudden, all these kids learn it over COVID, right? And they're practicing. They have the time on their hands to do it because you're not at practice. You can't go to the ranks. You're not even in school. So you're just like in between your Zoom classes, you're like teaching yourself stuff. And then now suddenly we have this generation of hockey guys that are like, hey, we can do really cool things with the hockey puck. And now it's everywhere. Because at the time when Svechnikov pulled it in 2019, Connor Bedard, who's the biggest star in the NHL right now, he's 14 years old. That's exactly when you are teaching yourself how to do things like this with the puck.
That was an unbelievable goal by Mike Legg. Look at Legg hold that thing and put it up in the corner. That's something you do in practice. That's something you do when you're fooling around.
Sports become much more creative. It's thinking outside of the box. It's not just pass the puck on the ice from one tape blade to another tape blade and shoot the puck and score. Mike's goal, opened that up visually and creatively. And players that weren't even born when this happened, that are stars in the NHL, that can do this with the flick of a wrist. And it's incredible. And the sport of hockey is now benefiting from it. So, and it's in video games and it's in social media. And if you're, in the hockey world, it's a big thing. And even it's broken through now because every time someone scores one of these goals, it goes viral. And it doesn't matter what you're a fan of. If you're a fan of sport at all, to see this move happen is so sensational.
Amazing. That was amazing. Legg with his 14th goal. We have a 2-2 hockey match. Back come the Gophers. An unbelievable shot out in front.
It's a pure sports story, and it's a pure origin story. And people love origin stories because there is an arc to it. It's not just something that happened in a game. There's a real story arc to it was done, then it went away, and now it's back, and here are the reasons why, and here's how it happened, and here's the person that got you from point A, and the other person that got you from point A to now. You have Red Berenson, who's basically the hockey equivalent of a Bo Schembechler, a very old school, traditional, but an innovator. Berenson was the first hockey player professionally to wear a helmet. Here's a guy who's the first guy to go from college to pro. So an innovator, even though he comes from that old world school. And so Berenson has to sign off on it. Legg has to have the chutzpah to pull it off in that moment. The referees have to call it a goal. It's almost like if you looked at it from a 10,000 foot view and you say, okay, this is going on now. It's almost mind blowing that this happened, and how it's changed the sport now is just crazy.
There will not be a highlight reel in the world that goal isn't on somewhere.
I can't imagine being an athlete who created a play. And it's not necessarily named after him, but everyone knows he's the guy.
He learned it from Bill Armstrong. He immediately gives Bill credit for that. We interviewed Bill for this, as well as Mike. I think it's amazing to them that all these years later, it's suddenly become part of the fabric of the game. When back in the day, when they first did it, it wasn't really looked that fondly upon by some of the hockey purists. I think they're both very low key about it. Mike is the nicest guy in the world. He's very low key. I just think that he just gets joy in it, and that it makes people happy. And I think Bill feels the same way, that it just, to see this having changed the game. And the only thing I can compare this to is I once did a story on the man who invented the jump shot, a man named Kenny Sailors, who basically would play against his brother, and his brother was taller than him, so he would jump to get elevation on the shot. And people, it's now so commonplace when you play basketball, it's like someone invented the jump shot. Like who?
Yeah.
There's pictures from Life magazine from 1943 of him clearly elevating, clearly shooting a jump shot. So it's of that level. There's about 2 or 3. It's the Fosbury Flop. Basically, when you used to do the high jump, you used to scissor kick. You'd run up and then you'd put one leg and then you put the other to get over.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you watch high jump, you run up to the bar, you turn your back to the bar, and you jump over.
Oh, okay.
And that's called the Fosbury Flop. It was invented by a man named Dick Fosbury. In the 60s, he would go on to win a gold medal. Where you couldn't imagine high jumping without the Fosbury Flop. You certainly couldn't play basketball without the jump shot. And now the Michigan is kind of reaching that, where you see it. Or maybe the day before Christmas, you had Connor Bedard and Trevor Zegras pull them off within hours of each other in the NHL. And that's really when people around the office were like, I guess it really is a thing. I'm like, oh, it's a thing.
I guess we'll let you do that story.
Exactly. We went out and interviewed Mike, and we thought maybe it would be a 5 or 6 minute piece, and now it's grown into a half-hour documentary. So it's really incredible, and it's a real tip of the cap to the management at ESPN to say, you know what, this is a really cool story. Let's do it. So
yeah, and he's a great character, doing a
wonderful
good job, being a good person, still working with kids and doing hockey. And
he's the best. He's really the best. He's an incredible alum of the university. That's been kind of fun because we're basically classmates. I'm class of 95. He's class of 97. So it's really fun because degrees of separation, and did you know people, and we're remembering things from the same time frame, and we lived them at the same time. And that's why this story for me has been so special, because unlike the stories that I do where I'm doing current athletes, they're living Michigan at a different time in the sphere. But for me to be able to do it, to tell Mike's story, someone that had such an impact in the university at a time when I was there, it's super cool, because it's like I remember this. Do you remember this? And I remember this. And like Mike and I, when we drove to shoot that open, we're in the car like for 4 hours, just like sharing stories, you know? So it's great.
Yeah, how fun. So did you guys know each other in school at
We
all?
we didn't. I didn't know him. I didn't know any of the hockey guys. I just we were in different, different worlds. Obviously, he was very busy as a student athlete. I mean, an absolutely incredible hockey player on an incredible hockey team. It was a magical time to be at Michigan. There was a lot of cool stuff going on at Michigan at the time. Did we just come out of the Desmond Howard and we had the Fab Five and I mean that time period in the early 90s of the University of Michigan is really a special time in the school's athletic history.
Yeah.
Yeah, even something like tracking down the video, I had to track down the WOLV guys. And I was like, I didn't realize that you started in South Quad in 1994. I would have gone and worked with you if I had known it existed. Instead, I was at WCBN. So it was like even like tracking
Still.
down those guys. So it's been a lot of fun because I've just been able to kind of call people and touch base. Oh, right. Call my buddy who I work with at ESPN, who wrote for the Daily, and he said to me, "Oh yeah, I used to cover the hockey team, and I remember Red coming up into the stands, and I'd have a conversation with them." It's really
Oh,
been
nice.
a nice way to kind of reconnect with people that you knew from Michigan or didn't know, or knew people in common, and to tell Mike's story has been really, really special. Anytime I get a chance to do any of the stories I do, I'm always very cognizant of the fact that people are opening themselves up to me as a producer. And I want to make sure that I get it right and to tell Mike Legg's story right and to tell the story of the Michigan goal right. It's been nice to be able to do that and for them to have the trust and that,
Yeah.
the university's been great and the hockey program's been great to help us out. The people associated, John Bacon's been wonderful. There's been a lot of people that are associated with the school that have really been able to reconnect. And this is just such a great story because it's just such a pure sports story.
Yeah.
All sport. And that's really nice because it's sports for the sports fan about a magical moment and a magical moment that has now literally changed the fabric of one of the big four sports that the world plays. It's the fact that it's taken so long in this particular case for it to catch on is amazing. And a lot of that is due to the world we now live in, social media, the phone, everything's everywhere quickly. Back then, I just don't think that it's like seeing something for the first time and then saying, you know what, I want to try that. The story behind the game has always been more interesting to me. And that's, listen, I'm a big sports fan. When Michigan was at the national championship game, I was fortunate enough to go. It does mean something for me when teams win or teams that I root for win, but I was always more interested on who the person was,
Yeah.
why and what their motivation was and where they came from than their day to day. He's got 6 goals and
Yeah.
his plus minus is, -1, or some people really get into that. It was
Yeah.
just never something that interested me. I grew up in Lexington, Mass, the birthplace of American history. Like that's history and the kind of documentary background stories of why things happened and when they happened and how they happened. That's just always been a fascination for me. And I've just
Yeah.
kind of taken that to sports because I always love sports. He's a firefighter in Vancouver, and originally we were going to film the open. I had this we needed a cool visual, and we were going to fly helicopters up into the mountains outside of Vancouver. But then internally, they're kind of like, do we really need, like helicopter and risk management and that stuff? Like, so ultimately, we decided to go to Jasper, Alberta, which is 4 hours west of Edmonton. There's a rink and there's the mountains. And I said, well, that's exactly what we need. So we went out, and so it's just fun to be two alums.
Well, yeah. And then you get to see, you're like right there while he's doing it.
Yeah, because that's my job, is to tell the camera crew, like, get this, get that type of stuff. So
Did it just bedazzle you even more? I mean, it's just so cool. It's just the scooping and then like a whoosh, it's just so cool.
it's mesmerizing. We must have had him pull at least 400 of them in a row. Like I can't really tell you how many he pulled, but he just can pull it over and over and over again. And
I
it's
love
just
that.
an amazing thing. Like, that's Mike Legg.
Well, be ready to get mesmerized at ESPN this hockey season by Fish's documentary and the playoffs themselves. Whatever you do, keep an eye out for the players who pulled to Michigan. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Until next time, as always, go blue.